This is The Unhurried Mama, a space for mothers who are tired of holding it together and ready to actually land. I'm Michelle, and I'm a mom, a writer, but not an expert. I'm here as someone still figuring this out, doing it my way, and refusing to pretend it's perfect. Every week, we sit together and untangle one piece of the parenting knot. No tips or fixes, I promise. Just the mess, the science, and the path back to you. So pour yourself some coffee or tea, close the door, and let's begin right where we are. One day last week, I was at the kitchen counter chopping veggies. I was present to only the sound of the knife and the smell of onions and the bright light coming through the window. My daughter wandered in, watched me for a beat, then said, almost to herself, "It's only 4 o'clock and you're already making dinner." I smiled and kept chopping. She stayed a little longer. "You seem more relaxed, like in general, compared to a few years ago." She's 12. I didn't say much. I just let it settle into my chest and stayed with the vegetables and the light. I've been mulling over what she said ever since, though. She named something I had been living my way toward for years without ever being able to see it from the inside. That the work was working, that the choosing was compounding, that something had genuinely, quietly, irreversibly shifted. She could see it from 2 feet away. I had been too close to it. This is the last episode of the season. I want to tell you how I got here. The real version, not the one that opens with wisdom. The one that starts in a bathtub. For years, I built something I was genuinely proud of. I was a senior leader in a network marketing company. I had a team, a following, a reputation. I had held up products in hundreds of photos with my eyebrows raised and my mouth in a huge, open smile. And if you had asked me then, I would have told you it was real. And parts of it were. The creativity, the connection, the genuine belief in what I was selling. But underneath the genuine was something frantic. Something that needed the next award, the next milestone, the next piece of recognition to prove that this time, finally, I had done enough to deserve the space I was taking up. I burned out, came back, burned out again. I told myself I was building something for my family, and I was. But I was also building a persona I had to step back into every single time I picked up the product. Eyebrows raised, smile wide, the energy that said, "I have it together. I am the person you want to be." I've been wearing it so long, I'd stopped noticing the weight of it. Stopped noticing I was performing something instead of living something. And at home, behind the camera, in the evenings when the cortisol had nowhere left to go, I was someone else entirely. The rage had to go somewhere. It always does. It was September 2021. My daughter was 7. We had spent the day at the neighborhood block party. Full sun, with neighbors and kids running in every direction. The best kind of exhaustion that comes from a day of too much good all at once, if there is such a thing. She was done. Her nervous system was done. Her little body was asking to be horizontal and left alone. I made her shower anyway. I undressed her fast while she protested, picked her up and put her in the bathtub, and she was already shaking her head, already crying before the water even ran. I was locked into something I couldn't name and could not stop. Some grip on the agenda that felt, in that moment, like the most important thing in the room. She needed to be clean before she got into her bed. That was the rule, and I was going to enforce it. My patience was gone. I towered over her and grabbed her arm to pull her toward the faucet. She pulled 3 and coiled away from the water. I grabbed the plastic cup from the ledge and started splashing water onto her body. I can go back to that moment in an instant. The rushing sound of the faucet was loud, but what pierced through it, what pierced through me and the whole bathroom, was her voice. The crying that turned into hyperventilating, the desperation of it, beyond tired or upset, something closer to terror, her crying plea for me to stop. I didn't stop. She fought me at first, and then she just went somewhere else and went limp. Her eyes found a spot on the wall and stayed there, and I watched her fall to her knees in slow motion, her cry opening into a wail, into the air above, cheeks flushed, eyes scrunched shut, tears rolling down her face and chest and mixing with the bath water. Her little body so still now except for the sharp inhales. In and in and in, like she couldn't find the bottom of the breath. I finished, shut off the faucet, lifted her out by her underarms, and placed her on a towel and wrapped her up. Her breathing slowed. The tears also slowed. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I carried her to bed, held her until she stopped shaking, then sat on the floor beside her bed with my chin resting on the mattress and watched her breathe. The contrast of it just flooded me. This angel, sleeping, cheeks still flushed, one arm thrown above her head, her whole body released into something safe now. And what I had just been in that bathroom. This wasn't the only time the rage had pushed through and overridden everything. But it was the worst of it. Everything concentrated into one night. And I couldn't explain it away. How could you? Look at her. Look at her sleeping there. How could you hurt her like that? You promised. You promised you would never lay a hand on her the way your parents did with you. And now look at you. I was the child who was hit. I had made that promise young, in my own body, without ever putting words to it. I hadn't hit her, but I had been rough and mean and forceful, and I had not stopped when she asked me to. And the distance between what I had promised and what I had just done was... I couldn't measure it. I just sat there in the dark and felt the full weight of it. Same pattern, different generation. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that when I finally got up, I felt hollowed out, moving through the house on autopilot, finding my way to bed in the dark. My husband was still awake. I told him what I'd done, my heart still beating hard. Told him I was shocked he hadn't heard her. He had heard. He'd thought she was just tired. "It'll be all right," he said. "Kids forget. Go to sleep." I lay there in the silence, the kids already asleep and my husband drifting off. And I turned that sentence over and over. Kids forget. And I knew from living in my own body that he was both right and completely wrong. The conscious mind forgets, but the body doesn't. The body holds everything, every moment of feeling unsafe, every time the person who was supposed to protect you became the thing to survive. I had spent years learning that, sitting with what my own body had been carrying since I was small. I was not going to build that in her, even if she never remembered why. I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. I sat on the edge of her bed the next morning. She was still lingering in sleep. Hair messy, one arm thrown above her head, same as always. I waited until she woke up and I stroked her face, and I told her that the person from last night wasn't who I really was, that it had scared me, and that I was sorry. She nodded like she heard me with her whole body, not just her ears. What I felt in my gut that morning wasn't a decision or a plan or even a clear thought. It was more like something settling into place after a long time of being slightly off-kilter. The way a door finally closes flush when the house has shifted enough. Something has to change at the root, because I could feel in my chest, in the specific weight of that morning, that I was going to lose them. Not to anyone else, but to the version of me that couldn't stop. And that was the one thing I could not live with. That morning on the edge of her bed was the first time I stopped bargaining with a problem and started looking at what was underneath. Nothing changed overnight, but something inside me was fundamentally different. Something had broken open, and I stopped trying to seal it back up. That was 2021. What came next took another 2 years. I didn't leave the business in a single clean decision. It unraveled, slowly at first, then faster. Post-COVID, it got harder. The energy to keep reinventing every 6 months, to show up with a smile wide and the content fresh when my cortisol tank was already scraped dry. I didn't have it in me anymore. I could feel things slipping, and I couldn't find the grip. And the harder I grabbed, the faster it went. And then, more than a year after the bathtub, the top leader on my team wanted to attend leadership conference for the first time. She had never been. And I wanted to make it the best experience possible for her. And honestly, some part of me that hadn't finished healing yet wasn't quite ready to let the dream go either. So I went back. We walked into a room full of people operating at full capacity, and I felt the pull of all that momentum moving through me like it used to. The company was planning a summit for senior leaders only, the next tier, and what you might call the inner circle. And the wound in me that hadn't finished its work thought, I want to be in that room. Not because the business needed it, but because some older, unresolved part of me still believed that being deemed worthy enough for that table would finally feel like enough. That if the right people decided I belonged, maybe I could stop deciding it for myself. It doesn't matter what the industry is. The hunger looks the same. I let the possibility of what could be override what my body already knew. There was a moment, standing in that room, when I felt my body do something I'd been practicing for over a year. It sent up a flare, quiet but clear. The same signal I had been learning to trust. And I watched myself smile at the person next to me and let the noise of the room swallow it whole. I knew what that flare meant. I'd felt it enough times to know. And I kept smiling. I told myself I was doing it differently this time. Unattached to the outcome. Just trying. This is growth. I overrode my own knowing and dressed it up in the language of evolution. I burned out chasing that next level. Didn't make it. And the following month, I finally sat with myself long enough to stop running. To stop letting my mind call the shots while my body paid the bill. to ask for maybe the first time without immediately answering it. What do I actually want? The answer came slowly, and it kept changing, which I understand now as the nature of being someone who needs the work to mean something beyond the number. The path has morphed, but the direction has stayed. I still do the business. I'm just not run by it anymore. That difference lives in my body more than it lives in any explanation I could give you. But the first morning I woke up and felt it, really felt it, was the morning I noticed I didn't need to check my messages the second my eyes opened. That nothing would fall apart if I didn't. That I could take a full Sunday, take more than 24 hours to get back to someone, and I wouldn't lose their trust. That I could ask, before I engaged with any of it, do I actually want to do this right now? And then move from there. Before, I didn't even pause. My mind said, you have to, and my body just went. No check-in, no moment of choice. Now, there's a breath between the impulse and the action. That breath is everything. A few years later, I'm here, chopping veggies at 4 o'clock, recording this, and writing the book. A month ago, I was cleaning old photos off my phone. It was just housekeeping, the kind of thing you do on a Sunday afternoon when you've run out of storage and you're slightly annoyed about it, scrolling through 3 or more years of screenshots you meant to do something with and never did. A good half of the photos were business-related. Product infographics, before and afters, tips and tutorials, and then the ones with me in them. Holding up the product, doing a demo, mid-skit in a reel I'd spent hours making because I was creative and I was good at it and I needed everyone to know. I slowed down when I got to those. Raised eyebrows, my mouth open in a huge smile, my eyes conveying a very specific kind of excitement, the kind that is partly genuine and partly desperate, the kind that says, please, please let this be enough. And I looked at my own face for a long time without moving. I didn't recognize her exactly, but I understood her completely. I understood what she needed from every award, every milestone, every comment that said, "You're so inspiring." I understood why she couldn't let herself feel it when it arrived, why the bar kept moving the moment she touched it. The proof she was chasing was never going to come from the outside. Not because she wasn't achieving enough, but because the hunger she was trying to feed had nothing to do with achievement. It had been there long before the business, long before the photos, long before any of this started. She was reaching for the only things she knew how to reach for, because no one had ever taught her there was something else. What I don't have a photo of is what happened after the camera stopped. Just the residue left behind. Putting the product down, closing the app, sitting in the hush of a house that had no idea what I'd just spent an hour manufacturing. I put down the phone and felt the sofa around me. The stillness, the absence of urgency. And I thought, this is what she was building toward. She just didn't know yet how much she'd have to let go of to get here. Some mornings I sit at the dining room table with my lemon ginger tonic, and the sun comes through the big window and lands on my face. And I look up at the blue sky and the clouds and whatever birds are flying by, and I just exhale. Not because everything is solved. We are nowhere near financially where I had hoped we would be by now. The path is still unfolding, and I don't always know where it's going. There are still mornings I catch myself mid-sentence with my mother's words in my mouth. Still days when the old urgency kicks in and I have to feel my way back to myself, like finding a door in the dark. But I don't spend a single second of those mornings wishing I could trade them for what I had before. Not 1 second. Even with more money, even with the awards and the recognition and the image intact, I would not go back. Because I am present now in a way I wasn't before. I move at my own pace. I chop the vegetables at 4 o'clock because I want dinner on the table by 6, and I want to enjoy making it. I check in with my body before I say yes. I know, most days, the difference between what I want and what I've been conditioned to perform. And that knowing, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs me something, feels like the truest thing I own. A few weeks after my daughter told me I seemed more relaxed, I asked her if she remembered the night of the block party in September 2021, the bathtub and the way the evening went down. She shook her head. Nope, none of it. And then she said, in that wise and mature way she embodies so easily, that what happened that night had more to do with me than with her, with my shame and the lessons inside it for me. She meant the work that was mine to do. I didn't say anything for a minute, just sat with what a 12-year-old had just handed me without even trying. She's been watching the whole time. I don't know if she understood what she was handing me when she said it, but I did. Because I had lain awake that September night with my heart hammering and my husband's voice saying, "Kids forget." And I had known, somewhere underneath all the shame, that forgetting was never the point. The point was who I was going to choose to become before she woke up in the morning. She didn't remember the bathtub. She noticed me in the kitchen at 4 o'clock. That was the evidence. Not this podcast, not the frameworks, not the awards I received while standing outside my own body. Just a mother, unhurried, in her own kitchen. That's what's left when the image finally falls away. That's enough. And so are you. Here's the truth many don't say in the parenting space. At some point, the work stops being about your kids. I know that's not what you signed up for. You came here for them, to break the cycle, repair the rupture, become the mother you needed. And you did that. You showed up and looked at the hard stuff and sat in the shame and chose differently. Sometimes just barely, sometimes with snot on your sleeve. But something happens when you start doing that kind of looking. You start to see yourself. And once you can see yourself clearly, not the performed version, not the image, not the woman with her eyebrows raised saying, "I have it together." Once you see the actual you, underneath all of that, a question surfaces, quietly at first, and then louder than you can ignore. Who is she when nobody needs anything from her? I notice even asking it out loud makes me breathe differently. I spent years not asking that question. Decades, honestly. I was very good at not asking it. I called it devotion. I called it, this is just what mothers do. I watched my own mother pour herself out for everyone around her and save nothing. not a single drop, for the woman underneath all the roles. And somewhere along the way, without ever saying it out loud, I think I made a promise to myself that I was going to do it differently. I didn't remember making that promise until just now, recording this. 12 years into motherhood, one whole season into saying the hard things out loud. And it's hitting me for the first time that maybe that's what all of it has been. The personal development, the inner work, the decade of trying to learn how to live differently. Maybe I've been keeping a promise I forgot I made. That lands differently than I expected it to. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one who forgot. That's where we're going next season. Into that question. Into the relationship that was there before anyone showed up needing something from you. The one you've been in the longest. The one we've been quietly starving for years while making sure everyone else had enough. The one we keep meaning to get back to. And if something in your chest just shifted, even a little, when I said that, that's the signal. That's your body telling you it's ready. Season 2 starts closer to home than you think. 10 episodes ago, I told you I was starting this because I needed to say it out loud. Because the work had changed me enough that staying quiet felt like a kind of dishonesty. You showed up, week after week. You sat with the piano lessons, and the 97 minutes, and the scissors, and the girl on the 3rd floor, and the ring. And you let it land. You didn't look away from any of it. That took something. And I don't take it lightly. If this season handed you language for something you've been carrying without words, that's enough. It gave you one moment of recognition, one permission slip, one morning where you sat on the edge of your child's bed and chose differently. That's the whole point. You don't have to have it figured out. You just have to keep looking. That's all this ever was. One last question before you go. Where in your life are you still performing an image you've outgrown? You don't have to answer it today. You don't have to do anything with it. Just let it rise to the surface. Let it come up from wherever you've been keeping it and place it somewhere where you can actually see it, in the light, without rushing to fix it or explain it away. Because the gap between who you're performing and who you actually are, that's not the evidence against you. That's the door. That's where the next season of your life is already waiting for you to walk through. You are allowed to put the image down. That's actually where we're going next, into what's underneath it, the relationship that was there before anyone showed up needing something from you. It's the conversation nobody's having out loud. We're going to have it. One more thing before I go. This is the last episode of Season 1, and I just want to say thank you for being here, for listening all the way through this one. If the show has meant something to you, if something in these 10 episodes cracked something open or made you feel a little less alone in it, there's a link in the Substack show notes where you can buy me a bath soak. I don't do caffeine, but you know what I mean. It's just a small way to say keep going. And on the hard weeks, that means more than you know. Season 2 is coming. I'm not rushing it. You know that's not how I do things. But I'll be back. when it's ready. Until then, you already know the way back. You always did.